So the topic is basically electronics and semiconductor manufacturing. As probably all of you know that electronics is being the backbone of our daily life, economic progress, strategic progress, any field basically of the economy or day-to-day life. We cannot basically have it without electronics. So when we
YouTube live.
talk about electronics and semiconductor manufacturing, actually what we want to talk about electronics, product and manufacturing, including the semiconductors. Like because manufacturing is like a factory. The factory has to be filled. It has to build some products, right? And the products have to be basically designed by the manufacturer itself or somebody to put the products, right? So just about 1 minute of context setting. Today, India consumes about $200 billion of electronics, give and take few billions here and there, and probably about 60 to 70% of that basically is being manufactured in India. But if you look at the products, out of the $200 billion products, only about 8 to 10% products are basically which are domestic. Rest of the basically products which are being manufactured in India or consumed in India are by the global brands. Basically, I think none of the people in audience will have an Indian branded cell phone, for example, right? Which is probably the biggest segment. Right? So we are going to talk about both the things. We have Sangeet, who basically Sangeet, who brings the expertise in the electronics manufacturing, electronics product development and manufacturing. Hitesh is from one of the largest semiconductor companies in the world who design and manufacture semiconductor products. Malini is from Renesas, another big semiconductor giant, of course, Japan, basically designing and manufacturing various semiconductor products. And Rahul is our champion manufacturer here, which I call it basically new age manufacturing guys, because most of our manufacturing large companies are traditionally 20, 25, 30 years old, right? And Zetwerk is one of the basically the new kid on the block, which is doing very well in the manufacturing, right? So maybe I'll start with Rahul. So we say about lot of manufacturing progress has happened. PLI scheme, other incentive for the manufacturing given in the economy. So how do you see overall manufacturing industry and what is the basically percentage of the domestic players in the manufacturing versus the global players in the manufacturing, and how does it affect overall development of the electronics manufacturing industry?
So generally sentiment in the country around manufacturing is being high exuberance. That sentiment, of course, in some shape and form translates into manufacturing as well. One classic example is the PLI scheme for mobile, where almost all mobiles in the country today get made in the country. Now, when we say it gets made, it's mostly the assembly job that's happening. But that's how all economies start. You start somewhere, and that's what's happening in the electronic domain. It's a great push by the government and also by the policy making stalwarts in aligning the manufacturing ecosystem towards assembly, moving assembly from China to India. And with time, we've seen in different supply chains, manufacturing moves from assembly to components as well. Classic example is air conditioners and even mobiles, where PCBA, for example, now it's made in the country for almost all the mobile phones that get assembled in the country. In terms of who are the large players who are doing it, majority of them are either Chinese or the global players like Flex, Jabil, and Foxconn. There are probably only 4 or 5 electronic manufacturing services companies in the country who would have a revenue of $100,000. So that's a long way for Indian champions to come and foray into it and become big. One reason is that we did not have the incentive in the past, and second is the experience. Considering the government's push towards domestic players, I'm pretty sure it will change.
Thank you, Rahul. Moving on to Sangeet, right? Sangeet company Addverb basically makes the robots of different type. one of the basically few large product companies out of India. We have companies like Zetwerk. In robotics space, we have companies like Ray or Case, and Krishna is sitting here, Gentron, and basically some other companies. But we have very few domestic product companies. So, what has been your experience over last basically 5 to 7 years since you started Addverb in building an electronics product company out of India? Challenges uh, and good, bad, or basically your experience.
So I used to work for Asian Paints, and we were users of this technology. And most of this technology used to come from Europe or Japan. And every time I used to feel we can make it in India, why is it that we don't have any player, etc. So after some time, after crying for so many years, I decided to stop crying, try to make some change. And we started this firm at work. Initially, when we started doing it, we did face a lot of problems because one, the volume was not there, and therefore, even when the ecosystem is there, there are good players who can manufacture parts for you. And because for them, the volume is not there, they would not be that keen. And so we realized it very soon. And we said, okay, then we will do it on our own. We will do everything on our own. Robotics is a multidisciplinary engineering product. You have mechanical, electrical, electronics, software at the edge, software on the cloud, etc. So it was a difficult product which we chose. We realized it later. Okay, as a user, you feel it is very simple. When you start creating it, you face a lot of problems. So we realized it, but we also kept on learning quickly. We kept on getting expertise from India and elsewhere so that we could solve this problem for ourselves. And we have now a team of 800 engineers working multidisciplinary engineering team. We have 2 big factories, one of them world's largest factory as far as capacity is concerned. We don't sell that one at a single location for mobile robots. And our products now with control on electronics, mechanical, we start with CNC, VNC, etc., with SMT lines and everything coming together and making it work for B2B clients gives extreme pride and extreme happiness personally. And I think we are not only us, there are other companies also which are coming up in this space. And with the opportunity which is available and the fact that it is a new field for everyone. Everyone has to start. Okay, robotics has been there from 1976, 77, etc. But the robots which were there in 1976 and the robots which we get or which gets used today in 2022, 23 is very different, and everyone has to start. Maybe someone has started something 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but everyone is at the start, and the technology is changing rapidly. So having control on everything in the value chain will help us, and we think we are betting on the right thing, and we will make ourselves proud, we will make India proud.
Thanks again. Before we move to semiconductor, question for Rahul, right? Typically, the thesis behind manufacturing incentives are that as the domestic manufacturing increases, the product also will increase. But if we look at the data for mobile, right, in 2015, Indian mobile brands had about basically 15% share, right? And Chinese mobile brands had basically less than 1% share. Now, manufacturing grew substantially in basically last 8 years. and so has the dominance of the Chinese brands in the market. Today, they have gone from 1% to 76% of the basically total mobile consumed, right? Uh, do you think in the future, as the manufacturing grows more, this type of the trends, not just for mobile, for other products also will keep on going this way, or there are things which will make it go in the other direction?
I'm more of operating in a venture capitalist looking up over how markets will behave. But generally, the journey of how things work, you become a trader, then you become an assembler, then you become a manufacturer, then you become a design house. And that's a journey because the investment required in time and money to each thing increases. Now, if I can't solve for today, I'm not going to invest for 2 years from now. That's what happened with the Indian brands in the mobile sector. They invested by buying things from China and selling it in India. They were traders.
They are traders, they remain traders, right? So this whole thesis will go from traders to product, right? Did not go right in the case of the early mobile manufacturers, right?
The investment did not happen from the traders. They enjoyed the capital building rate, which is great.
It will not happen today also, right? Why will it happen today? Let's make it interesting.
What you're saying is absolutely right. So brands who do not innovate do not survive in the market. They have to compete the global supply chain with global brands. The consumer is not going to buy a product which is inferior just because it is made in India. They're going to buy the product which is best and made in India. Right? So anyone who wants to compete for the consumer's mind space and the spend, they have to innovate. If Indian brands do not innovate, they will go out of business. That's the biggest fear which exists in electronics investment from EC and IESA. Their biggest fear is will you be the next mobile company which will not exist after making so much money. So yeah, innovation is key to success. Our manufacturing will still survive. Apple might innovate in US and give demand in India. So manufacturers still have a great job to do. But we can't be the world powerhouse if we don't innovate and bring product to the country.
Now moving on to semiconductor, which is basically behind all the products which Sangeet and Zetwerk and everybody brings, right? Part of that basically electronics is primarily semiconductor, and we have two global basically representative here, Hitesh and Malini. So Hitesh, how semiconductor companies like NXP can help basically bridging this gap, right? Basically to move the traders and manufacturers to basically product creators, right? Because certainly it requires the help from the semiconductor guys, whether it's commodity devices in mobile, wearables, or vehicles and robotics or other things, right? It requires significant support from basically semiconductor global players. Still, we have our own semiconductor basically manufacturing and product industry. So, your vision is how we can basically leverage almost every semiconductor company being in India to help basically create electronics product companies out of India.
No, thank you, Satya. I think this is what I see is a great opportunity in front of all of us. I think we, in the semiconductor world, how do we take decisions as semiconductor companies? We look at mega trends. So no customer tells us that okay, what is that he needs 5 years or 10 years. So we look at that how the industry or how the ecosystem is going. What are the top 10 mega trends? And looking at those mega trends, we come up with our technologies. And our technologies are, you can say, agnostic to sectors. So if I'm creating a radar technology, it can go in automotive world, it can go in IoT world, or it can go in industrial world. So it can be into multiple markets. So I think we think, okay, if these are the mega trends, for example, AI. So then, that's the technology which is going to create. But then we come up with the right products, with the right technologies, which can serve multiple markets. And that's exactly that we are doing. We are bringing the latest and greatest technologies, I would say, to our ecosystem partners. And I call these product manufacturers as our partners. And And I think India also has great opportunity because if you see last 3 decades, so if I color the decade of 2000 to 2010, that was the decade when the compute companies like Intel, AMD, I think they were making big dividends out of this wave. The 10 years 2010 to 2020, it was more of a mobile wave, and from 2020 to 2030, we call it as edge computing or edge kind of a wave. So we will have by end of 2030, so when the semiconductor market is going to touch 1 trillion, so there will be 75 billion connected devices. And so 75 billion connected devices that can be in the industrial space, that can be in automotive space, communication space, IoT. So those are the various sectors. So what we are doing is we are working closely with the partners, with the ecosystem, with academia, with the startups to see how can they build solutions for India. And again, we need not to follow the same trajectory which has been followed in US or Europe. So there can be, we can bypass. For example, we talk about EVs, right? So and there can be a complete fresh approach for two-wheelers, for three-wheelers, or even for the cars. So again, there is an opportunity to do a fresh start, build completely brand new solution in terms of battery management, in terms of connectivity, in terms of sensing, radars. So I think the answer to you, Satya, is that we are working with the partners. We are looking for these sparks like Sangeet and Rahul, so who can help us. But we more or less bring our technology and work very closely with the partners to build solutions for them.
Thank you. Malini, I think we all talk about EV and Renesas is putting a lot of basically effort in powered semiconductors like silicon carbide. They signed a very large deal with full speed for basically developing. How do you see Renesas basically helping Indian EV manufacturers, especially two-wheelers, to transition from regular silicon to compound silicon?
We won't, I guess, talk specifically about Renesas, but I have a generic pitch to this point. See, I think, just as Rahul said earlier, everything starts in one seat, right?
Yeah.
Just as Rahul said very earlier, everything starts in bits, right? You start, so for instance, when the semiconductor industry started in India, we started off with, say, augmenting a little bit from other global designers. And slowly, we're starting to think, okay, no, we shouldn't just augment, we should build products. So that transition has happened and it's continuing to happen. And slowly, as we go through that transition, we're starting to realize, okay, just products is not enough. Let's look at markets that are also meaningful to India, right? With the whole self, let's be a little bit more self-sufficient in India. So I think in that scheme of thought, we start thinking, okay, autos are very unique to India, and why not look at EV charging for a three-wheeler? That would be such a unique market over there. And so I think trends like this will kind of navigate us from depending on chips designed in a global market to starting to design it for our own.
Thank you. I think there might be a lot of interest in the story about the semiconductor fab. We'll take it basically a little later. Does anybody from audience can tell how much incentive government has given for manufacturing in terms of PLI? Anybody? I think let's get involved, right? Basically, we don't want to talk among ourselves. Ballpark, how much incentive so far government has given for electronics manufacturing in terms of PLI? Do you know what is PLI? Production linked incentives. About how much incentives government would have given to manufacturing in terms of PLI?
Yes, $4 billion.
Okay. Anybody else? Too less, Krishna? You are too low.
25,000 crores.
How much?
25,000 crores.
Okay. Anybody else? Rahul, you can give the actual number, right?
25 billion. I'm not getting anything, but even for it, I think I'm loud enough. I'm not getting anything at all. I did 17,000 crores for IT hardware. That's what we know of.
17,000.
For IT hardware, and then there is probably different amount for mobile as well. And there is different amount for auto, but that's a different segment.
So, approximately, basically, $10 billion, 70,000 crores have been basically allocated for incentives for manufacturing, which Rahul said, mostly right now at the basically SMT and assembly level. Right? How much incentive the government has given for product development?
2,000 crores. 2,000 crores.
Okay. That's more for semiconductor, electronics product development. I think it's close to zero. If I basically, there is no particular incentive scheme by government of India to directly incentivize somebody like Sangeet or somebody else who is trying to develop basically product and take it to the market, right? So do the basically my fellow panelists think that basically it's time for the government to start thinking that we have been following this bottom-up approach, right? We'll do assembly, then SMT. Let's start working the top-down also, where we start incentivizing the product. This thing. So, if I'm giving $100 incentive for manufacturing, what could be the incentive should be given for the product development companies if the government has to basically take some initiative in that direction? First from audience, then we will ask the question to the panelists. 10 times. Okay. Anybody else? Somebody who's in the product development? Krishna?
1:1.
Sangeet?
Yeah, I have a contrarian view. I believe any incentive makes you lazy, does not allow you to innovate, and I compete with Chinese companies, Chinese robotic companies in US, and they have 25% subsidy on every robot which gets exported outside China. Okay, it is another fact that there is a countervailing duty from US which compensates, but in Europe it is not like that. But it does challenges us to think differently, and that was one reason why we decided to have control on everything, every component. I cannot be competitive if I continue to buy from Siemens or Nvidia. Yeah, they are large industrial product, but they also build their product buying products from NXPDeveloperZone. So why not? And India, we were discussing this fact. So I realized one of the great things about India today is there is a lot of, all these MNCs have big number of people, 5,000, 10,000 designers, testers, etc. They also need application companies to test their products perfectly. And if they need application companies, we can be those companies which can work really closely with the R&D team which is serving globally from India and make products which are much, much better, much, much more reliable, than any other product. One, if when we have to succeed outside India, we have this tag made in India. Now that made in India tag is not comparable to maybe made in Germany and made in Japan tag. But that will be comparable only if my product is more innovative, my product is better than the best which is available in the world today. My product is reliable and people people associate with quality with my product, and that is how I can compete. Indian manufacturers, mostly product companies, they cannot and they should not, according to me, build products only for India. They have to build products which is world class, which is for the world market, and it has to be successful in India as well. And there you have advantage of being close to the market, etc., knowing the market better. But the products and product quality has to be different. It has to be more innovative, and that can happen only if there is no subsidy.
Sure. So you think basically product industry does not need subsidy, but basically manufacturing industry need for 5% PLI. Okay. First the number and then the comments. What kind of the incentive should be provided? Because whenever we talk to manufacturing companies, they say if we need to basically become ODM and this thing, we need basically R&D funding from the government. And it might be different because we had a different idea, but most of the manufacturers are not moving up because they are not finding the enough R&D dollars. So, what if I am spending $100 on manufacturing incentive? What should be the incentive given for product development companies? First, the number and the comments.
I think I agree with the gentleman who mentioned that 1:1. Minimum it should be equivalent to what we are giving to the manufacturing team. So see, because again, of course, you can start from scratch, but it always helps if you have some initial. You can see because some of the investment you need to have large investment, right, in your equipment and building and other things. But I think more than the incentive, I think what we also have a huge wealth of knowledge, which I just would like to say. We're talking about so there are fantastic brains in the country who are sitting in this room. So I think more and more what we need to have system thinking. So of course I come from a semiconductor company where I have more than 4,000 engineers, as Sangeet was mentioning. So they are doing quite a lot of innovation, thinking, okay, how do we do best kind of processors? How are we doing best of sensors? But I think more and more we need to develop also the people who are thinking or kind of devising how the system should look like. Even if you see in the automotive world, right, the OEMs like the bodies and BMWs of this world, they come to us to NXP. They say, okay, dear NXP, please tell me how my cars 10 years down the line should look like, how the car architecture should look like. So I think they are asking us because we are not a component provider, but we are also kind of giving a view of the system. So more and more, if we can develop this system thinking, right, we have system engineers who can define and design products. Again, fully agree with him, not only for India, but for the world. I think that I see a huge opportunity. And I think that's where we should also start innovating in our institutes, especially in IITs, which have the best talent. So a lot of time the research is in the core, I would say very, very small, deep topics. Like people are developing, maybe 15 people developing a data converter. For sure, that's very, very valuable. We need to also enhance our research or at least focus some spending toward research in the system area.
I think Hitesh. Okay. I tend to agree a lot with Hitesh. He actually stole some of my ideas before I could say them. But what I wanted to say was, so I spent many years as an applications person, and all this was not in India, but when I was living in North America. So when I tried to make the shift back to India a year and a half ago, people came and told me, you were doing applications, we don't do any of that in India, right? And that was appalling to me because complete lack of system focus. And I think just not having even the knowledge that you should be looking at problem system. So as soon as I came, people were like, are you verification? Are you design? What are you? I said, I'm all of that, I'm system. So I think in India, I think we have really ways to go on the system side and on the customer focus side. So the other aspect I found that was really missing was, while we design products for the global market, all the customer conversations happen outside. But unless you talk to your customers, you're not really going to know what you need to build. So I think bringing some of those conversations into India will really help us develop the India products. And the reason I say 1:1 is not necessarily just the focus on product, but on education as well, on education, knowledge transfer on the product side, to be able to bring up a next generation of very product focused engineers.
So I feel that probably starting with lower numbers or something works, because it's very tricky if you look at it from the government side. How do you know whether the product is designed in India or not? It's very tricky. You don't know what goes inside your phone. What you care about is the body. The body is the least of the design that you can bring. And the consumer cannot be forced to buy something and people start buying it because it's made in India. The government does incentivize design-led manufacturing in aerospace and defense, where they are actually the buyers. They ensure that you buy it from the party, you design from the party who is the one who is from India. We are in aerospace and defense, and we feel that sometimes there is no competition at all because government has only ensured that the Indian parties are the one who design it for it. It's very tricky. Also for the folks who are designing, if they don't know the manufacturing system exists in the country now. You can design a product for the consumer, but without being cost competitive, you'll not be able to sell it. So this is a complex problem to be solved. Even the government is trying to figure out, and we want folks like you who can solve it. People like me are operators. We grab on what government will do.
No, I think all of us are basically part of the same problem or solution space, right? Any questions from the audience we should take before we discuss few more topics? If nobody raises hand, then we'll start picking people from the audience. Yes, sir. That's one.
First of all, thank you for the very engaging session. So, thanks to all the panelists. So, by hearing the views from all of you, one thought which comes to my mind is what advice you all give to Indian manufacturing companies to come on a global stage, to compete with the global brands in India, continue to innovate, because it's too much to ask from them. But that's the reality, that's the hard fact. So, what are the advices you can give to the Indian, like Sangeet and similar companies, that they should really come to the global? Thank you.
One is scale. I think bringing it to complete, it's very important that you can scale. You can't bring cost to it. That's one of the biggest problem. Another aspect is, really variability. A lot of the global brands, I'm not talking manufacturing, I'm not talking design, I'm not talking about anything else. For example, the global brands are all non-Indian. You won't buy Micromax phone if you get Samsung at the same price. You won't buy, a brand called Rahul if you are getting Lenovo or HP at the same price. So you need to collaborate with these guys. You need to be there with the the expectation that they have, because they are your customer and customers are God in business. So one is scale, and second is behavior in terms of what they expect, transparency, law, following the rule of the country, the law, and everything around it. These are the important parameters for them to work. And once they set in, they bring you to standard of the world, and then you can work with anyone else. And classic example is Foxconn. Foxconn has been Taiwanese or a Chinese company for donkey years, and probably they are more important to Apple than Apple is important to them. When they come to India, Foxconn is brought to India by Apple. They are not able to find folks who can bring in that scale and efficiency which Foxconn brings them. So we need to be there and competing with them. We're already out there. They're 20-30 years ahead of us. So we need to figure out, and that's the reason we get the incentives. Because they are 30 years ahead of us, how do we compete with them? It takes time to be efficient, it takes time to create systems, it takes time to train your labor. While you take all the time, the customer is not going to pay extra money. And that's why government is utilizing that time frame. And after that, we have to compete. That's what everyone is questioning. What will happen after the mobile phone PLI goes away? Will the manufacturing go back to China? We'll figure it out, but unlikely because we become as efficient as time. So yeah.
Anybody else?
No, I think one of the things which I see is that India is seen differently by the world. So if there are many people who are thinking to be manufacturing from India, one thing is you have to position yourself right? Whether you are a tier 1, tier 2 or want to become an OEM. Have the positioning right. The second thing is find your right partners. So companies like us, which are component manufacturers, so we are there to support not only the big players, but also I would say the MSMEs and also the startups. So any help and support that you need from, so I think size does not matter. So one is that, like Rahul said, have your vision big, position yourself, and reach out where you can collaborate, where you can get the things that you need. And one is I would suggest not to only scratch the surface. Go deep into your R&D, go deep into your system knowledge, so that you can be a differentiator, you can be a master in your own game. So that's at least my side, few words of this.
Okay. So, few things which I have basically experienced and faced in my startup journey, right, is that first thing is picking the right problem, right? Everybody learned has to make a mobile phone. Like he chose to make robot because he felt basically there is a space there, and he can basically fulfill that space to make the robot products, right? That's number one, right? Second is that like the electronics or this kind of the technology, most of our product companies are very technology centric. Okay? I think they need to be business centric as well, right? As scale and customer and all of those things, right? You can build a fantastic product, but if you can't sell it, it's become a museum piece, right? Basically, until unless you have that business focus. And third is basically risk capital being available, right? Basically, there are a lot of risk capital available for software companies and so on and so forth. There is very little risk capital available to hardware or product companies. Sangeet has been lucky a little bit on that front, but that's where the government incentives can basically help in kickstarting the ecosystem. But I think the biggest lacking thing in Indian product companies, especially in electronics, is the business focus. They are more technology focused, less of business focus. If they have to spend like 40% of their budget on sales, marketing, products, engineering, and so on and so forth, they will say, right? Basically, I have done a fantastic technology. It will sell. But I think that mindset has to change to become more business focused than just the technology. That's my personal experience and basically startup. Any other question from your audience?
Let me ask you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Semiconductor MNCs, there has been quite a long history of semiconductor MNCs in India, right? I mean, 30, 40, 20, whatever, few decades, right, we've had a great trickle effect in terms of skill development, a lot of engineers getting employment, getting the pay packets, and that trickling down into the economy, say the Bangalore economy or the Delhi economy, whatever. But is it even realistic in the current scenario where there is a lot of talk about Make in India and the PLI scheme and the India Semiconductor Mission scheme and all that? Probably government has started all these schemes with an expectation of these companies looking at the India market and hence putting up a fab. Is it misplaced the expectation from any of the MNCs to even start thinking about a fab? It might be a controversial question, but nevertheless.
If you don't want to answer it,
No, I think.
I don't want to
See, I think.
facing your boss after half an hour, right?
No, I think. See, we are very sorted, at least in terms of semiconductor, right? So I'm very clear where I'm innovating. I'm doing a product innovation or I'm doing a process innovation. So if I'm doing a process innovation, I'll put the fabs. And put the fabs everywhere, wherever possible in the world. Wherever I get incentives, I'll go there because my focus is on process innovation. While if I'm a product innovation guy, I will focus more how do I get the best in class products. And with that, focus is on product. Process, I would like to be as flexible as possible. It can be a 5 nanometer, it can be a 15 nanometer, 16, 20, 2, 3. See, because Intel, right, they were all vertically integrated and we know what kind of challenges they had, right? For some of their advanced processors, they had to go to TSMC to get their 7 nanometer processor. I think as long as you know where you are innovating, right, what is your DNA, it's a very easy story. And then geography, yeah, so I think, so it can be anywhere. So I think Renesas is having fabs in Japan, we have fabs in Europe and US. So I think it's just a factor. So of course India has ambitions to set up factories, and there are players, and there are maybe in 1 year we will see somebody coming up and setting up a fab. It will help the startup ecosystem. It will help the India ecosystem. But at least I'm clear that we are doing a product innovation, not a process innovation. So I think NXP is not very much looking forward to that fabs.
Yes. 30 seconds, right? I think you said you have all of these companies and people, right? That's a technical pool, right? A fab or a large manufacturing unit of any type will come because if there is a market. The market pool will decide where basically things go. Because if you see when US came up with the CHIP Act and TSMC and Samsung were asked to put up a fab there, incentive or no incentive, they had no choice because their customers were sitting there. AMD, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, all of those guys are sitting there, which are the biggest customers. For them, there was basically not much of a question to do that issue, right? We don't have basically customer of the fabs in India yet, right? You might be making a lot of electronics, but we don't have the fabless ecosystem of large basically numbers which consumes the wafers basically from this company, as you understand. So talent pool does not basically gives you enough reason to put up the manufacturing. The market will do basically, and I think, and second, it takes time. It will happen. Micron has happened. Basically, a couple of more things are happening. I think within 3 years we will have at least 1 or 2 fab units in India. At least I'm very confident by end of 2024 we will have announcement of 3 OSAT, 2 compound semiconductor fab and 2 silicon fabs.
Wow, interesting.